Okay, so let's take a look at procedural splines. We'll come back up here to our spline menu, and we have all of our drawing tools here that we just took a look at. And then we have our procedural splines, the blue ones that we have below those. Now, this is sort of the same idea as the procedurals that we have over here with our 3D objects, but on the spline side. So again, what that means is that these are just representations of mathematical formulas. So let's just go ahead and drop a couple of these into the scene and take a look at them. So I'm going to put an arc in the scene. And if we come over here to the Attributes Manager, we have some options that we can play around with. So we have the type. Right now it's arc. That's sector, segment, ring. We can control the radius, the inner radius, the start angle, the end angle. We can control what plane this is on. Right now it's on the XY plane. If we want to change that to the ZY, we could do that. Or the XZ, we can do that. Now, just so that makes sense, right now it's on the XZ plane. This is lying flat. Let's go back to the YZ. Now it's on the YZ plane. It's lying on this plane. These two. And if we go to the XY, now it's lying on this plane XY. Now we can control if we want to reverse the spline, the points on the spline, and the intermediate points that make up the spline itself. Okay, so we can go from none to natural, uniform, adaptive, and we have a subdivided option as well. Okay, so let's get rid of the arc. Let's take a quick look at another one. Let's take a look at the helix. That's an interesting one. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the XZ plane. And you've got a start radius, start angle, an end radius. So in this case, it's controlling the top. An end angle, the radial bias, and the height bias, the subdivision, and again, these are the same. We can reverse the points and we can change the intermediate points. Okay, let's get rid of this. Now, one you may not think of off the bat as being a spline is the text object. So in here, this is basically a spline, and we can control the letters that are created. So I'm just going to type in my name. We can control the font. So if you click here, you're going to get a huge list of fonts. So I'm going to click something like Rockwell. We can control the bold, italic, regular. This is going to change depending on the font that you have. Horizontal spacing. Vertical spacing. That's actually not going to change in this case. We can separate the letters out, which is very convenient. We can control the kerning here. So we can play around with that in here. And we can actually, if we click on Show 3D GUI, we can control that in here as well. And we'll go into this a little later. Again, the plane, the reverse, the intermediate points, these are all the same again. Now, as I mentioned before, splines do not render on their own. So if I click the Render tab here, Render View, so it's going to render this viewport, you'll see that we get nothing. That's because you have to do something or you need to add something to this scene. And what we need here is a generator. So what we'll do is we'll come over here to the generators and we'll grab an extrude object. Now we can take our text, grab that and make that a child of the extrude. And now you'll see all of a sudden we have some geometry here and this will render. So remember, the splines by themselves do not render. They need some sort of a generator object in order to create the geometry. And we'll get into this in more depth in a later movie. Let's go ahead and get rid of this for right now. Let's go back over here to our splines. Let's take a look at the star. That's a nice one. So we come over here, the inner radius, we can control that. Outer radius. Twist. How many points on our star? And again, these are the same. The star by itself does not render, but if we put a extrude NURBS in the scene, put the star as a child of the extrude, then we do have some geometry here. Let's have a look at the cogwheel. That's a nice one. So we can control the amount of teeth. Again, the inner radius, the middle radius, and the outer radius. You can control the bevel. It looks like a pretty decent little sun. Again, let's take our extrude NURBS, put it under there, and we have something looking like that. That's kind of cool. Let's get rid of this. Take a look at one more. Let's take a look at the flower. This looks very 70s. We've got our radius here, our inner radius, our outer radius, the petals. And again, all this is the same. So the parametric spline objects are very powerful objects here in Cinema 4D, and often a great place to start when you're modeling.